About 1 minute. Lily, don't touch it. Don't touch it, Lily. I should have grabbed the camera. She was in front of it.
Yeah.
Can you give Paul his cues?
His cues?
Yes. We're one little less than a minute.
Okay. Did you already kind of use it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's still playing, but I don't hear it. All right. You got 25, is that what you got right now?
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Notifications.
I am honored and blessed to be here with you today just to share a little bit about our organization, who we are and what we do and why we do it. And I just want to thank you just for reaching out to our organization. You know, we feel like David standing before Goliath, you know, because we just recently started, but we're not new to this. And so when you show up on the scene, people think that you are a newbie, but you've been passionate about it and doing it behind the scene, because a lot of people only do things when they've been labeled or titled, but you know, it's the best thing when it comes from the heart, and you just do it because, and as she stated, you know, we are, the name of our organization is Mothers United Against Gun Violence, and that encompasses so many things. And first of all, about myself, first of all, I am a servant of the Most High God and passionate about everything that God gives me to do. You know, I think about when he gave talents to some, and he gave one 5, gave one 2, gave one 1. And God has he's graciously blessed me to be able to do a plethora of things. And I tell people it's all because of the grace of God. And I have a best friend for over 35 years, and she said, just tell people that you are the one with the 5. So I am the one with the 5. God has truly blessed me, and I give him all the honor and all the glory, because he saved me many years ago, back in 1984. And before then, I was doing things and, always caring, always reaching out, and always loving, always going for those who didn't have a voice, always speaking for those, always fighting for those that people were knocking down and picking them up. Just had a heart, simply because I was not raised by my mom and my dad. And sometimes when you have those gaping holes, you start searching and you see people who are hurting like you. And so therefore, you just begin to fight. And so, having been raised by my grandmother in Sumter County, I experienced a lot of things, and and unfortunately, I was drawn into a relationship where I was a victim of domestic violence. And had it not been for the grace of God, it would have ended as a statistic. But God had another plan for my life, and I'm so grateful that he did. So when I left Alabama and moved to Chicago in 1984, that's where God saved and he changed my life. And having moved to Chicago, I did experience a lot of things. I moved away with my 2 sons. They were small. One was 6 and one was 3. And so being a single mom, I was living with my mother, and we were raising these boys in some different conditions. I had not been accustomed to the fast lane, to the gunshots, to the sirens all day and all night. So it was definitely a culture shock. But definitely God, he groomed me and he showed me, he opened my eyes to a lot of things, having saved me at an early age, because I didn't get sucked into the streets I could have been. And I tell people, if it wasn't for the grace of God, that would be me. That would be me walking with 5 and 6 and 7 with no husband. That would be me on the corner, seeking after drugs, seeking after some of these things. So when we see people, we know if it wasn't for the grace of God, that would be us. So we have no reason to look down, no reason to frown upon. So I've always had a passion for people who were suffering. And again, my oldest son, he was a victim of gun violence. He was shot twice, but he survived only because of the grace of God. And I often share the story of how it happened. And as I said, I was saved during the time, and God was using me and giving me dreams and visions and showing me things. And one particular night I had a dream, and it was very disturbing, and I saw my son being shot. And as I began to process the dream, I could see everything that was transpiring. And I heard the shots, and in the dream I got up and I walked outside, and I looked down the sidewalk, and I could see a body lying on the ground. And as I was walking, I could see it was my son, because it was a certain outfit to wear. It was purple pants and this multicolored shirt way back in the 80s. And so he was lying on the ground, and as I got close to him, I could see blood streaming from his head, and he was motionless. And I awoke, and I called my pastor's wife, and I told her what I had seen. And she said, well, we are going to pray that God will turn away death and premature death. She taught me how to pray. She taught me how to intercede, to cover him. And it was less than a month later, I'm working downtown in corporate, and I got a phone call that my son had been shot. And as I first heard the news, an instant panic began to come. But the Lord spoke, and he said, what did you ask me to do? And I asked you to cover my son, and my son was okay. But God, everything that the enemy planned, God reversed it. When I got to the hospital, he was wearing the exact same thing that he was wearing in the dream. He got shot in the exact location, but God did not allow what the enemy had planned to happen. So God turned it, he covered it, and he shifted everything. And through those things, through my life, through my commitment and prayer life, and walking with God, he kept my children from things that other mothers and fathers were experiencing. because I said, God, I cannot be there for my children 24/7, but you can. And so I committed them to God, and God took care of them. And all of my sons made it out of Chicago alive. And it's nobody but the grace of God. While we were going to funerals, going to burials, and all of these things, going to hospitals, children crippled, cannot walk, and paralyzed, all of these things, God did not allow it to happen to me. And so after moving back to Alabama, I moved back, I left and went to Nashville, and then came here to take care of my mother before she passed in 2019. But Dr. Haynes and I, we connected, and it was by God's intervention, and we just began to see the tragedies and the shootings and the heartbreak constantly happening. And by us having the experience, he is from another state, and so was I. So our vision was different. The things that we had experienced was different. It was on a broader scale, but yet the pain and impact was the same. And so God just gave us a heart and a compassion to reach out to these mothers and to these individuals who had survived domestic violence, who were getting over losing a son or daughter to violence. And we began to use the experience. First of all, we use our warfare in prayer, because we know that as David had a great responsibility as king. It wasn't just talking to the people. He had a spiritual responsibility to lead the people into prayer and how to seek the face of the Lord. He had a military responsibility. He had to have his soldiers ready for battle at any time. He had a political. He had to teach them how to govern accordingly, according to the things of God. They could not rule with an iron rod. They could not rule with selfish motive. They had to rule and govern accordingly. That's where we are. When we come in these arenas, we bring the Spirit of God. We teach people how to reach God. No matter where you've been, no matter where, there is always hope. We've encountered a lot of mothers who have lost children, who feel like they can never get over it. But God is a God of comfort, and God is a God of peace, and he's able to give you peace. The only thing about it, they have to be able to receive it. They have to open their hearts and receive what God wants to give. And another thing, in trying to reach out to the young men, the young women who are committing these crimes, because they are not too far gone, that God cannot reach. I often share a story of violence that my son was enduring in Chicago, and it is a story, and it touches a lot of people. I came home early from work one day while living in Chicago, and I could hear my sons walk in the door, but I could hear my son crying. And I went home, I said, what's wrong? And the prior weekend, he had gotten hurt, and I had taken him to the hospital. His arm was in a cast, so I didn't know whether it was pain. And he said, these boys jumped on me. And I said, who? Where are they? That's the mother instinct. It just, and I'm like, where are they? And my mom, she said, please don't go. I said, I have to go. I have to go. Because if I don't go, they will feel like they can continue to do this. And I jumped in my car. We drove around, and I found them. He said, there they are. It was two of them. They were walking. And I got out of my car, and I just approached them from the heart of a mother. And I just began to talk to them. I didn't point my finger in their face. I just talked to them. I wanted them to think about their actions. I wanted them to think about the pain that they were inflicting on someone that looks like them, that talks like them. I wanted them to think about how would you feel if you were wounded, if you were broken and bruised, and somebody just came and put their foot on your neck and took you further down. I wanted them to think about the pain that they were causing, not only to them, but what they were causing to others. But I know that hurt people hurt other people. And I wanted him to know that that same pain that you're inflicting, somebody else who's bigger and badder will come back and do it to you. And I just began to put something on his mind. And as I got in my car and was ready to drive away, he flagged me down. And he said, ma'am, I am so sorry. He said, I would never do it again. He shook my son's hand. He said, I'm sorry, man. And from that day forward, my son never had an issue out of a young man. Never. And he died a couple years ago from a drug overdose. And my son said, he said, Mom, he said he was going through so much in his home because they became friends after that. And so that's why we know that in order to reach these young men, we have to reach the home, because it starts in the home. It starts with the parents. It starts with the pain, because if they have been inflicted upon pain after pain, that's what they're going to release to their children. It's going to be a ripple effect. And so we cannot reach one without trying to reach the other. So we try to bring together forums where we're able to talk to the parents. We connect with other organizations who are reaching mothers and fathers, because we know that the things that we're facing, they're bigger than any one entity. They're bigger than any one organization. So we try to look at the whole gamut of what's contributing to it. We know that homelessness and poverty, it contributes to it. And so once a month or twice a month, we try to go downtown and feed the homeless. We pick a park. Sometimes it's Lynn Park. Sometimes it's Kelly Ingram Park. We try to shift the locations of just spreading these resources. And we connect with others who bring clothing. And so we just really try to reach the people. We connect with youth organizations, because we know that it is imperative to reach the people before they become indoctrinated with violence, with the gangs, with the videos, with the things that they watch, with the music that they hear. These things have powerful subliminal messages that are released. And so we have to try and get them, because change starts with the mindset. It's not a location. It's not anything. It's a mindset. And that's why the Bible said, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And if there first be a willing mind, you can teach people, you can give them resources and information. But if their mind is not open to change, it's going to stay the same. What's the old saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. And so it starts with the mindset. You have to feed the mind something differently. You have to give them something to expect, something that's different from what they're accustomed to. And if they only get the same thing, they're going to continue to do the same thing. And so we are just reaching out to organizations, partnerships. They are so important. They're so important. We can't have long-range organization expecting to make the impact, expecting to leave a footprint of change and modification, because it'll never happen unless we work with other organizations. We have to utilize and capitalize on the strengths and the knowledge of other organizations, because everybody brings something that's imperative to the changes that we seek. Because change, it begins when we can realize that even though somebody may have some of the same strengths and weaknesses and knowledge that you do, that they are not your enemy, they are not your competition. We are not competing against anything but the enemy that's trying to take over our cities, take over our homes, and take not only our children, but us out. You have road rage. You have all of these things that are happening on a daily basis. Pardon me? You have all of these happening because people, their minds are indoctrinated with anger, with resentment, with rejection, with somebody is after me, all of these things. But when we can lead them with truth to Jesus, everything that we do, we may not speak it verbally because of some of the political minutiae that we are facing, but we can always pray silently. And we know that the power of prayer, it can permeate the hardest heart, because he told Jeremiah that my word is like a hammer. And that's why we're out here pounding the pavement. We're here taking territory with prayer and conviction to let people know that change is possible, but you must be willing to receive and to know your worth. Your worth is not contributed to a gun. Your worth is not contributed to an affiliation of a gang. Your worth is so much more because of what Jesus has made available for you. And when we can share the message of Jesus Christ, when we can share the message of the love that God has for every individual, and you are not too far gone. Think about Saul, how bad he was, persecuting the church, killing, enslaving, putting them in jail. But God saw value in him. He saw worth. And that's what we're trying to convey, that there is worth in every living soul, because he is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And so we preach Jesus, we teach Jesus, we walk it. It's not just a Sunday morning thing. We walk it when we're in the streets to let people know that Jesus lives. And he ever lives to make intercession for you. He ever lives to change your life and to change your situation. He ever lives that you may have a different perspective on who you are and what Paul said, I can do all things. God bless my sons. He changed their lives. They were involved in these games. They were trying to survive because they felt like the only survival is to commit your loyalties to them. But when you can tell them about Jesus, put your loyalty and your alliances, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, that's your protection. And that's where your worth lies. So I'm just super excited and thank you. And we are planning another event on September 28th. We are having a walk. We are bringing together women, men. It is to talk about the disparities in the health of African American women, because we know there is a disparity because a lot of them are in places where they're not getting the health care, and the mindset, it changes and it just diminishes. And as I said, it continues to spread to the children, eating the wrong things, doing the wrong things. You are what you eat. And so we are just coming together, galvanizing healthcare professionals, mental, physical, emotional, to help change the mind. Because when you can help change the mindset of that woman, the woman has the power to change the dynamics of the house and the community. Because we are walking change agents. We carry so much power and authority, and we just want to use it for the greater good, to let people know that they are not on an island of Patmos, that they're with a community, they're with a family of people who care, who can walk with you, who can walk with your children, who can walk them out of that thing and into a brighter and better future. And that is our prayer, and that is our goal. And thank you so very much for the privilege and the honor of being able to share with you this morning. God bless you. It is my continued prayer. Thank you. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
How old are these kids that you
Sir,
How old are they?
are the children that I cater to? We go to grade schools and we go to high schools. And so we're trying to reach them because we know nowadays when we look at the news that the children are becoming younger and younger who are committing these crimes. So we work with school systems, we work with organizations like youth serves where kids are in high school getting ready to go to college. And so we work with all of these organizations and entities to try and impact and empower these children. Yes.
I've thought for a long time that, one of the biggest factors was our educational system. And, getting parents to support the kids in education. Because, I've seen so many times kids that maybe were not very good students and didn't get the attention they need.
Yes.
And they start to skip class because they're not good at it.
Mhm.
So you don't want to do stuff you're not good at. And they start to skip class, and that's when they kind of drift towards those bad elements.
This is true.
And, I remember when I read Kamala Harris's book about what she did in California, because they were having a big truancy problem. And she told them, you can't wait till they're in the middle school.
You can't.
You got to go away with that. So I'm glad to hear you talking about being involved at a very young age. Because that's when you can do it.
Yes.
When you wait till they're 13, 14, it's really hard.
It's very hard. And I'm so glad you said that because I'm also working with the Birmingham Housing Authority, and just recently they were implementing a truancy program that encompasses the entire family, because you cannot do it just trying to make sure the children don't skip class. Because when I was in Chicago, he was my youngest at the time, and he was going through some problems, and every day I'm at work, I get a phone call. Your child did not show up today. I'm like, oh my God. And so I knew that there was a problem, and so I had to solicit help and support to make sure that he was in school because I know that he was going through some emotional challenges, and so we had to address those things. You just can't say, well, you have to do this. You have to address the root cause of the problem that they're dealing with. Sometimes it's bullying, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's so many nuances, and we have to be able to talk to our children. A lot of parents don't know how to talk to their children. They talk at them and not to them. They don't listen to what they're going through. I had to learn to listen to my children. I had to learn to listen to understand the language of the streets in order to save their lives. Because if you dismiss it, you're just sending them to the wolves. And so we have to be able to listen and understand.
Well, I think too, you know, approaching the whole family, because I know in the book that Dr. Hill said, the first reaction was, the parents, was, you're just trying to get us food and baby. But, no, they're trying to help the kids.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
so, yeah, you don't address that, I think you see all that pushback.
Yeah, yeah. And that comes from fear, because, as I said, the things that are passed down in a lot of these homes, because they didn't have a mother or father to tell them, to encourage them. A lot of them were told, you're never going to be anything, you're never going to be more than your mother or your father. So that mentality, it just continues to permeate, and it's a cycle that's repeated, and we have to break that. We have to break that and let them know that change is possible. But if that's all that they hear, that's what's going to be a part of their approach when they're in school. And it's going to be a ripple effect, and you're going to continue to get those calls. But we want to change that and let them know that maybe you didn't have it, but it's still not too late. It's still not too late. You have people 60, 70, 80 going back to school because they've had a change of mind. Yes. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the walk that's coming up.
Yes.
Tell us a little more about that, how people can participate.
Absolutely. Well, right now we're in the process of revamping our website, and it is September 28th, and it's going to be at I think it's Black Creek Park in Fultondale, and registration will start at 8 a.m., but I'm going to make sure that Shaylee has all the information. Like I said, we're getting everything up to par right now. I'll send her a flyer that she can share with you, because we definitely would love for you guys to be a part of it. It is going to be amazing. We have been able to contact so many healthcare workers who are so excited for this thing, and we have some proclamations that they are declaring it African American Women Health Month to really focus and drive home the need, because, like I said,